Amanyarko was a 27-year-old fashion designer living in Accra, Ghana. For 2 long years, she worked non-stop at her tiny tailoring shop, saving every cedi she could. She skipped parties, turned down small luxuries, and stayed up late sewing dresses for customers. Every stitch brought her closer to her dream, a vacation to Dubai. She wanted to see the desert, the tall buildings, the gold markets, and finally rest after years of hard work. But she didn't want to go alone. She wanted to share it with her boyfriend, Kwame Mensah, the man she'd loved since university. One sunny afternoon, Amma met him at their favorite cafe, the same spot where they'd once planned their future together. Her heart raced as she slid a small, white envelope across the table. Inside were 2 flight tickets printed neatly with their name. "Kwame," she said, smiling so wide her eyes sparkled. "We're going to Dubai." Kwame hugged her tightly, but for a moment, his eyes flickered with something she couldn't quite read. It looked like surprise or guilt, but Amma didn't notice. She was already dreaming of the view from the Burj Khalifa and the photos they'd take together. That night, she transferred 28,000 Ghanaian cedis, about $2,200, to his account for the bookings. Kwame kissed her cheek and whispered, "You're my world, Amma. I'll handle everything." She believed him completely. What Amma didn't know was that the man she trusted most wasn't planning a trip for 2. He was planning an escape, and another woman was part of it. 2 weeks passed, and Amma hadn't heard a word from Kwame. At first, she told herself he was just busy planning their trip. Maybe he was finalizing bookings or sorting out travel documents. But after several missed calls and unanswered texts, a small knot of worry started to form in her chest. Still, she refused to think the worst. One afternoon, while taking a break from sewing, Amma opened WhatsApp and froze. There it was, Kwame's new status. Her heart skipped a beat. It was a photo of him, smiling wide, sitting by a blue pool in Dubai. But what made her drop her phone wasn't the background. It was the woman beside him. Her arm rested easily around his shoulders. Na Ajali, Amma's old classmate from fashion school. For a moment, Amma couldn't breathe. Her mind went blank. "No, he wouldn't," she whispered, her voice shaking. Maybe it was an old photo, she thought. Maybe there was an explanation. But then another photo appeared, Kwame and Na again, this time holding hands, his caption written boldly across the screen. "My queen deserves the best 2 hearts #Dubai love." The room started spinning. Amma sank into her chair, hands trembling. Tears blurred her vision as the truth hit her like a slap. Kwame had taken her money, her dream trip, and gone to Dubai, not with her, but with someone else. And not just anyone, but someone she knew. By evening, the whispers had spread through the neighborhood. People talked in hushed voices, some with pity, others with gossip-filled excitement. Efua, Amma's best friend, burst into the room, her face tight with anger. "Amma," she said, kneeling beside her, "don't cry for a man who couldn't even buy his own ticket." But Amma couldn't stop. The tears came like a flood. Every memory of Kwame, his promises, his smiles, his "I love yous," played in her mind like cruel jokes. She had trusted him completely, believed in their future, and he had used her love as a stepping stone for his betrayal. Days turned into nights, and Amma barely left her room. She scrolled endlessly through social media, torturing herself with every new post from Dubai. Kwame and Na dining under golden chandeliers, riding camels, laughing like the world belonged to them. Each picture felt like another cut. Amma stared at the ceiling, her heart aching, wondering what she had done to deserve this. "How could he?" she whispered over and over, her voice breaking each time. She wasn't just crying over lost money. She was crying over trust broken, love mocked, and a dream stolen. That night, as the lights went out in her little room, she clutched her pillow, tears soaking through the fabric. Somewhere far away, under the same sky, the man she thought she knew was living her dream, while she was left behind, watching it disappear, one picture at a time. For days, Amma stayed locked in her tiny room, curtains closed tight, the world shut out. The sewing machine that once hummed from morning till night sat silent. Her phone buzzed nonstop, customers asking about their clothes, friends checking in, but she ignored them all. She had no strength to talk, no energy to pretend she was okay. The betrayal had cut too deep. Amma had faced hard times before, late rent, broken machines, sleepless nights, but nothing felt like this. It wasn't just about the 28,000 Ghanaian cedis she'd lost. It was the humiliation. The whole neighborhood now knew her boyfriend had taken her money and run off with another woman. Every time she stepped outside, she felt eyes on her, whispering, pitying. So she stayed inside, lying in bed for hours, replaying every moment with Kwame, wondering when exactly he'd stopped loving her. Her mother came from Kumasi after hearing what had happened. When she entered Amma's room and saw her daughter, eyes swollen, food untouched, her heart broke. She sat on the edge of the bed and took Amma's hand gently. "My daughter," she said softly, "don't let this pain destroy you. Let it build you." Amma didn't reply. She just stared at the wall, the words echoing in her head long after her mother left. That night, she picked up her phone and opened social media again, a habit she couldn't seem to stop. And there they were, Kwame and Na, all smiles in Dubai Mall, bags in hand, posing in front of luxury stores. The caption read, "Shopping with my queen." Amma's blood boiled. Every Sadie in those bags had come from her sweat, her sleepless nights, her customer. For a moment, anger took over the sadness. She threw her phone on the bed and buried her face in her hand. "He used me," she whispered. But then another thought pushed through the pain, something small, but steady. "If I can work this hard to build someone else's dream, why can't I build mine?" She sat up slowly, wiped her tears, and turned on the light. The room looked messy, fabric piled everywhere, designs half done, but something in her shifted. The same hands that had built Kwame's Dubai dream could build something bigger, something hers. She reached for her phone again, opened her old business page, and hit reactivate. Her heart pounded as she typed a new bio. Amma Nyarko Designs, stitched from pain made for power. It was short, but it felt like her truth. For the first time in weeks, Amma smiled. Not the bright, carefree smile she used to have, but a new one, sharp with purpose. Kwame might have stolen her trip, her money, and her trust. But he hadn't stolen her gift, and she was ready to take it back, thread by thread. Amma woke up one morning with a different kind of energy. The pain was still there, but now it had turned into fire. She decided that if her heart was already broken, she might as well sew something beautiful out of the pieces. So, she threw herself back into work. She cleaned her small shop, dusted her old sewing machine, and sorted through piles of fabric she had ignored for weeks. Each color told a story, but she kept coming back to two: black and gold. Black for heartbreak, gold for rebirth. Her new collection came straight from her emotions. The gowns were bold, dramatic, and full of power, nothing soft or timid. Every stitch carried her anger, strength, and healing. She worked through nights with only the sound of the machine and her thoughts. When the first few designs were done, she stood back and smiled. They weren't just clothes. They were her story. One evening, Amma recorded a short video on her phone. Her hair was tied up, eyes tired but determined. She held up one of her new gowns and said with quiet confidence, "He took my trip, but not my talent." She posted it online with the hashtag from pain to power. At first, she didn't expect much. But by the next day, the video had hundreds of likes. By the end of the week, it had thousands. People, especially women, started commenting, calling her the woman who turned heartbreak into art. Influencers reposted her video, fashion pages shared her story, and soon everyone was talking about Amma Nyarko, the designer who turned betrayal into beauty. More videos followed, behind-the-scenes clips of her sewing, short talks about resilience, and even a few light-hearted jokes about turning Dubai tears into designer dream. Her honesty made people fall in love with her. She wasn't trying to look perfect. She was real, raw, and brave. Then one morning, Amma got a message from Kojo Style, a popular fashion blogger in Accra. He wanted to interview her for his YouTube channel. When he arrived at her small shop, he was surprised to see it buzzing with customers and orders pinned on every wall. During the interview, he smiled and asked, "So tell us, what happened to the Dubai money?" Amma laughed softly, a calm confidence in her voice. "He spent it on sand," she said. "I built an empire from ashes." The quote went viral overnight. People printed it on shirts, shared it in captions, and even made memes. Orders poured in faster than she could handle. Her small shop that once felt like a prison had become a powerhouse. Amma worked with gratitude in her heart. Every dress that left her shop carried a piece of her story, one of pain, power, and pride. And with every stitch, she reminded herself that sometimes the best revenge isn't payback, it's success. Months passed, and life had completely changed for Amma. Her business was booming, her face was on blogs and fashion pages, and her designs were being worn by influencers across Ghana. She'd gone from heartbreak to headline. Every morning, she walked into her new, brightly lit shop with pride. The same woman who once cried herself to sleep now signed delivery forms and managed a growing team of young designers. Then one hot afternoon, as the sewing machines buzzed and music played softly in the background, the shop door creaked open. Amma looked up and froze for a second. Standing there, awkward and out of place, was Kwame Mensah. The same man who had once left her in pieces now looked nothing like the man in those Dubai photos. His shirt was wrinkled, his face tired, and his confidence gone. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Amma leaned back in her chair, eyes calm but unreadable. "Ah, Mr. Mensah," she said, her voice light, almost playful. "How was Dubai?" Kwame shifted uncomfortably, forcing a weak smile. "Amma, I made a mistake," he stammered. "I was confused." Amma let out a quiet laugh, the kind that cut deeper than anger. "You weren't confused, Kwame," she said gently. "You were comfortable." The words hit him like a slap. He looked around the shop, taking in the sight, Neatly displayed gowns, assistants working confidently, customers admiring her new collection. The air smelled of fabric, success, and peace. Everything he'd thrown away. "You've changed," he muttered finally, almost in disbelief. Amma looked him straight in the eye and replied, "No, Kwame. I've always been this woman. You just never saw me clearly." He lowered his gaze, shame washing over him. For a moment, he seemed smaller, like a shadow of the man he used to be. He tried to smile again, searching for words that might fix what was long broken. But Amma had already turned back to her sewing machine. The soft hum filled the silence, reminding him that life had moved on, just not for him. He stood there for a few seconds, watching her hands move with quiet power. Those were the same hands that had once made him clothes for free, cooked for him, trusted him. And now, they created beauty that the whole city admired. When he finally walked out, Amma didn't look up again. She didn't need to. She wasn't angry anymore. She was done. As the door closed behind him, one of her assistants whispered, "Was that?" Amma smiled faintly, cutting her thread with precision. "Yes," she said. "That was a customer who can't afford the price anymore." And just like that, she went back to work, calm, focused, and unshaken. The man who once made her cry had just watched her glow. After months of silence and regret, Kwame's life had fallen apart. The Dubai dream had ended badly. Na Ajali had left him the moment she discovered he'd used another woman's money for the trip. She took whatever little he had left and disappeared. Now back in Accra, Kwame was broke, jobless, and living with a friend who was already tired of feeding him. Every morning, he woke up scrolling through job ads, sending out applications to companies that never called back. He went from cafe to cafe using free Wi-Fi, pretending he still had things under control. But deep down, he knew he had lost everything, not just money or love, but respect. One afternoon, while searching online, he saw an advertisement for a design partnership program. The description said it was a great opportunity for creative minds who wanted to grow in the fashion industry. Without reading the fine print, Kwame quickly applied. He thought, maybe this is my second chance. A few days later, he received an email inviting him for an interview. He ironed his one good shirt, borrowed a pair of shoes, and arrived early, nervous but hopeful. The office was modern and busy, a far cry from his current situation. He sat in the waiting area, clutching his CV, rehearsing lines in his head about how passionate he was about design. When his name was finally called, he walked into the room where the panel sat. 3 interviewers smiled politely at him. He took a deep breath, trying to sound confident. The interview started normally, questions about his experience, ideas, and teamwork. Then one of the panelists said, "Before we continue, our guest speaker just arrived. She'll be joining us to talk about the importance of ethics and creativity in fashion." Kwame turned toward the door, and his heart dropped. Amanyarko walked in, elegant and composed, wearing one of her signature golden black gowns. The room seemed to freeze. Kwame's face went pale. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. Amma glanced at him, her eyes calm but sharp, the kind of look that said everything without a word. He wanted the floor to swallow him. Amma greeted the panel warmly, pretending not to know him. Then she began her short speech. Her voice was steady, her words smooth but powerful. "In business," she said, "we must value loyalty because talent without integrity ruins everything." The room fell silent for a moment before applause filled the air. Everyone nodded, impressed by her message. But Kwame couldn't lift his head. He knew exactly who she meant. After the session, Amma thanked the panel and walked out gracefully. As she passed by him, their eyes met once more, just long enough for him to see that she wasn't angry anymore. She was beyond that. Kwame sat in his chair, humiliated but strangely awakened. For the first time, he realized the full cost of his choices. She had turned pain into purpose, and he had turned opportunity into regret. Amma could hardly believe it when the official invitation came, Accra Fashion Week. The biggest fashion event in Ghana wanted her to showcase her design. For a moment, she just stared at the email, her heart racing. All those sleepless nights, all the tears, all the pain she had turned into work, it was finally paying off. She decided her show would tell her story, but not in words, through art, color, and movement. She named it Deserted Dreams. Every piece in the collection carried a part of her journey. The long black gowns spoke of heartbreak and betrayal. The shimmering gold fabrics represented healing and rebirth. The show would start in darkness and end in light, just like her life had. On the night of the event, the audience filled the grand hall. Cameras flashed, music thumped softly, and the air buzzed with excitement. But Amma wanted something different, something that people would never forget. When the first model stepped out, the crowd gasped. The runway was covered in sand, golden and soft under the lights. The models walked barefoot, their steps slow and powerful, each one symbolizing a woman walking through pain toward purpose. Every detail told a story, from the torn edges of some dresses to the bold embroidery that resembled rising suns. By the final walk, The crowd was completely silent, watching as the last model appeared in a stunning gold gown that seemed to glow under the spotlight. Then, as the music swelled, the audience rose to their feet in applause. Some even wiped tears from their eyes. Amma stood backstage, her heart pounding, realizing this was more than fashion, it was freedom. After the show, reporters surrounded her, microphones and cameras in hand. One of them leaned in and asked, "Amma, is it true your designs were inspired by heartbreak?" Amma smiled, her eyes calm but proud. "Yes," she said, "but I turned heartbreak into heritage." That line hit the internet like wildfire. By morning, international magazines and blogs were featuring her collection. Photos of her sand runway flooded social media. Fashion critics called her the voice of resilience in African fashion. Then came the most unexpected email of all, a collaboration offer from a Dubai-based fashion brand. The very city that once represented betrayal now wanted her creativity. It felt like the universe had come full circle. A few weeks later, Amma stood on the tarmac, her ticket to Dubai in hand. But this time, her heart was light. She wasn't the woman crying over lost dreams anymore. She was flying there as a creator, a designer, and a woman who had built her empire from pain. Poetic justice. The same city where her heartbreak began was now the place where her success would shine. And as her plane lifted off, Amma whispered to herself, "This time, I'm not going to Dubai to escape. I'm going to create." When Amma's plane landed in Dubai, it felt like a dream she had already lived. Only this time, she was living it on her own terms. As she stepped out of the airport, cameras flashed, and reporters from fashion magazines called her name. Local designers greeted her warmly, holding signs that read, "Welcome Amma Nyarko, Africa's rising star." The same city that once symbolized betrayal was now the place celebrating her success. Her driver took her straight to the hotel where her fashion pop-up would take place. From the car window, Amma gazed at the tall buildings shining against the desert sky. When the Burj Khalifa came into view, her chest tightened. She remembered that picture, Kwame by the pool, smiling with another woman. But this time, she wasn't crying over it. She stepped out of the car, stood beneath the massive tower, and whispered softly, "I paid for my pain, now I own it." Over the next few days, Dubai buzzed with excitement about her pop-up show. The event was beautifully designed, a blend of Ghanaian tradition and modern fashion. The room smelled of shea butter candles, drums played softly in the background, and fabrics from Ghana hung like art on the walls. Every piece she showcased told a story, bold, vibrant, and unapologetically African. She made sure to include artisans from home, giving them credit and shining a light on their work. When the doors opened, people flooded in, fashion lovers, influencers, and even representatives from luxury brands. The crowd admired her designs and applauded her for bringing something new and powerful to Dubai's fashion scene. Reporters quickly started calling her the woman who turned betrayal into beauty. Amma smiled as she gave interviews, talking about her inspiration, her journey, and how her culture shaped her art. But deep inside, she knew this was more than a career milestone. It was closure. Meanwhile, back in Ghana, Kwame sat on a worn-out couch at his friend's place, scrolling through Instagram. Every post seemed to be about Amma, her pop-up, her interviews, her success. There she was, standing under the same Burj Khalifa he once used to show off. His friend looked over and smirked. "Chael, she went to Dubai after all, without you." Kwame didn't reply. He just turned off his phone and sat in silence. The same silence Amma had once cried through. Only now it was his turn to feel it. Back in Dubai, Amma stood on the balcony of her hotel that night, looking out at the city lights. She felt no anger, no sadness, only peace. She had turned her pain into power and her heartbreak into heritage. The trip she once paid for in tears had finally brought her to a place of triumph. And this time, she wasn't someone's plus one. She was the name on the invitation. One quiet morning in her Dubai hotel, Amma sat by the window, sipping coffee as the sun poured through the glass. The city below sparkled, just waking up. Her pop-up event had been a massive success. Her designs had sold out, she'd made new international contacts, and her name was trending across fashion blogs. It felt surreal. She had dreamed of Dubai once because of love, but now she was there because of her own hard work. As she scrolled through congratulatory messages from fans and media outlets, one notification caught her eye. It was a name she hadn't seen in months, Kwame Mensah. Her heart skipped for just a second. Curiosity won. She opened the message. "Amma, I'm proud of you. I hope you can forgive me someday." For a moment, Amma just stared at the screen. There was no anger left in her, just a strange calm. The old Amma might have cried or typed out a long reply, trying to sound graceful. But this Amma was different, healed, busy, and thriving. She smiled softly, took a deep breath, and locked her phone. Some messages didn't need answers. Instead, she opened Instagram and selected one of her favorite photos from the Dubai showcase. Her standing proudly beside her models, the Burj Khalifa glimmering in the background. She adjusted the lighting slightly, then typed her caption carefully. Don't chase revenge. Let success post the picture. Within minutes, the post exploded. Likes poured in, comments flooded the page, and people started sharing it with the hashtag from pain to power. Her followers, especially women, wrote messages like, "You're an inspiration," and "Sister Amma, you're proof that pain can glow." Fashion pages reposted her photo, calling it the comeback of the year. Even people who didn't know her story felt the power behind her words. It wasn't bitter, it was beautiful, a message of quiet strength. In Accra, Kwame saw the post too. He sat there staring at the screen, the caption hitting him harder than any insult ever could. She hadn't mentioned his name, hadn't dragged him publicly, hadn't tried to shame him. She had simply risen so high that he couldn't reach her anymore. He closed the app slowly, realizing that her silence said more than words ever could. Meanwhile, Amma's notifications kept buzzing nonstop. She laughed softly, scrolling through the love pouring in. Messages from young designers, single mothers, and even students filled her inbox, all thanking her for showing that heartbreak doesn't have to end in bitterness. That night, she stood by her window again, looking out at the glowing city. Her heart felt light. She didn't need closure from Kwame. She had already found it in herself. She whispered, almost to the wind, "Thank you for breaking me, because I wouldn't have built this version of me without it." And as her phone kept lighting up beside her, Amma smiled. Not for the likes, but for the peace that came from finally turning her pain into power. The airport was busy that morning, filled with voices, rolling suitcases, and the scent of fresh coffee. Amma walked through Kotoka International Airport with her passport in one hand and her heart full. Her Dubai trip was finally complete. Not the one she once dreamed of, but the one that truly mattered. Cameras had captured her, magazines had written about her, and her designs were now on runways she'd only seen on TV. But none of that compared to what she had gained inside, peace. As she stepped out of the arrival gate, she spotted her mother waiting a few meters ahead, smiling with open arms. For a moment, Amma just stood still, taking it in. The last time she'd seen her mother's face like that was when she was broken and lost. Now she was coming home stronger, shining in a way that couldn't be dimmed. Amma walked quickly, her eyes filling with tears. Not from pain this time, but gratitude. When she reached her mother, they hugged tightly. Her mother whispered, "Welcome home, my daughter. You did it." Amma smiled, holding her even closer. Around them, travelers passed by, but in that moment, it felt like time had slowed. She had gone through betrayal, humiliation, heartbreak. Yet somehow, she had turned it all into beauty. As she pulled her suitcase toward the exit, her voice played softly in her mind like a reflection of her journey. "He took my money, my plans, and my peace, but he didn't take my purpose. Sometimes the trip you never took was never meant to be a vacation. It was your awakening." And with that, Amma stepped back into the Accra sunlight, not as a broken woman, but as one reborn.